Welcome back to Holistic Healing Association. I'm Erin Darcy. I'm certified in body processing and clinical hypnosis. Today I have with me Nicole Healy, all the way from Australia. She's also certified in body processing. And today we'll be talking about how our bodies speak to us and to become more in tune with hearing what our body is trying to tell us. Thank you so much for joining us. And would
Thank
you
you
like
for
to tell
having
us
me.
about yourself?
Yeah, so obviously I'm from Australia. My name's Nicole, and I use the somatic therapy or embodied processing a lot for myself and for my clients, and have found it's a beautiful way to actually start to lean more into, I guess, the wisdom our body has for us and being able to really feel things rather than living on autopilot almost. And I had my husband with a gambling addiction, an attempt on his life around 12 years ago. And finding this modality and being able to support myself in such a beautiful, safe way has been life changing.
And how has it been life changing?
I never realized when, especially those really heavy days, how much I was trying to escape feeling and was really trapped in a state of living in fear. And when I say living in fear, it's almost like my body was constantly holding on. So the way I like to visualize it is almost like I was on a roller coaster and he's on it with me. So addiction, my husband and me are on this roller coaster together. So you can imagine what it was like. And I'm just on there thinking that I am trapped here. It's feeling scared, feeling unsure of what I could do. And everything I did to try to help with that situation, with him, with myself, even with our family, my children, was coming from that space of hanging on for dear life. And somatic therapy literally helped me get off the roller coaster and to say, I'm here on the sidelines, but I can be a more safe, stable, reliable space and start to really show up from a space of compassion and love. And that was because I was able to hold, that space inside of myself. So instead of being full of fear and worry and even grief about the addiction, I could start to see the ways that I was actually adding to it through my own fear. So if I was scared, of course, I'm going to come across as being someone that's maybe irrational or overreacting or adding to what was already happening. But when I started to soothe the body and have that space to meet those emotions, I could come in from a space of love and be more grounded and present and almost more rational. So instead of, getting really angry or hurt or upset and projecting that onto him and the situation, I could take a breath and step back and think, well, how can I show up that's actually going to help, the situation? And it really helped me feel more seen and heard in it too, because I was being truthful rather than fearful. I hope that all makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you. And how does our body speak to us, and how can we start to listen?
Now, I think the first thing really is understanding that our body, does have this wisdom, but also learning how to connect with it. Because if you say to someone, just listen to your body and they've never done it, they're not going to really know what you mean by that. So with EP, as you know, we have that beautiful start where we do resourcing. So it's creating a space for the body to actually feel safe to start to feel, usually with a good memory or not a good memory, but like a memory that's positive. And that when we feel it in the body, we can feel it, even if it might just be small, but we can feel it in a way that actually feels, okay, I feel like I can relax into this. I don't need to run from it. And for me, really working on that first, and I really dedicated myself to doing that daily. It was probably a good 6 months before I even began to look at anything else. Just holding that space and letting the body know it is safe for you to feel. There's nothing to fear here. And then I started to take it, that step further in sessions where we would bring in, a trigger or a memory that maybe, was a bit heavier, and start to navigate that. But the body knew that it had this safe space to come back to. And I think that's the real pivotal point about being able to feel in the body, is you have to feel safe first and allow the body to go, okay, I'm going to be okay being here. And as that grows, it is really such a wonderful experience.
Thank you. And the mind at times can be confusing and play games with us.
Yeah.
Does the body ever lie?
I feel like the body can lie when it's dysregulated, but not to the point that if we don't know how, to meet it, that it can lie. So to me, it's sort of like a duality. Like, I think when I was in that state of fear, the body was definitely, not so much lying, but more projecting things from the past, things that hadn't been healed. Whereas I think when I started to go, okay, for example, if I'd found out he had gambled, my body would go into fear, and I would be having this state of, oh, what's going to happen now? We're going to lose the house. I'm going to be homeless. All these things would come in from that place. And then the body would become so overwhelmed and dysregulated. Sometimes I felt like I was going to have a heart attack and die. It felt that big and heavy. And that to me almost felt like a lie, because it wasn't true. But then when I started to come back and be going, okay, I can feel the body starting to get dysregulated. What does it need? Being curious with it, meeting those emotions, letting them move through in a safe way, then the body could really speak to me. And I felt like that is my greatest truth, when I'm in that state of not trying to make it do or be anything, but just holding space for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for me, I do feel like sometimes our body can maybe lie a little bit, but when we know how to hold space for it and meet it without fixing it or making it right or wrong, I feel like then the truth that our body gives us is probably the greatest truth we will ever really hear or, meet.
That's a great answer. Because if we can go into our bodies and be regulated and just listen and be in tuned, then the body will normally tell us the truth.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not whether it feels good or feels bad or light or heavy or what's showing up. It's more about, that being able to hold space for whatever's coming through and being able to be with it. And that's, like when the truth comes through. Because I think we have to be mindful to go, okay, I might be feeling sad. I don't need to fix it. That sadness has got something to tell me too. Or that anger, or, even that fear has got something to tell me, if I can meet it in a way that's not so consuming.
Because all of our emotions speak to us. They're all neutral. They're messengers, and
Yeah.
or I should say communication.
Yeah.
And under our emotions, often there's layers of emotions, like an onion that we need to peel down and become curious. And it's a gradual process, but it's a process, it's a journey worth taking. And what advice do you have for people to listen to their gut and intuition when the body always speaks the truth and life can be confusing? So when we can go into that place
Yeah.
and really listen, how can we start to do that? Can a somatic therapist help us? What are steps that you would advise?
Yeah, I would absolutely start with some guided support and making sure that it's a space where you feel like seen and heard, because I think that's really important to finding the right person. And obviously, I'm an advocate for somatic therapy. I think it's amazing. Um, and really starting to build that foundation first, like I spoke into earlier. Don't think, we need to go in and start looking at every wound that we've ever carried in our life, because we're not a project, we're a human. And holding space for the body first and getting to meet yourself, from the neck down, as we like to say, is such an important part of this. And I always
It's
say to
huge.
clients, let's not rush this part of it, because we're building the foundation. We're not trying to fix ourselves. We want to meet ourselves in a new way. And that to me is crucial. Just letting yourself just go at a pace where you're meeting you, not fixing you. Um, I, that would be my biggest takeaway, and obviously getting the right support.
Because that's healing,
Exactly. Yeah, and
right?
we're not. To me, healing isn't a finish line. Healing is, I'm meeting me and I'm nurturing me, showing me kindness and compassion, and doing it from that scope of being curious. What can I find out about me? And that, when people say just love yourself, that to me is loving yourself, but doing it in a way without force.
I agree. 100%. Yeah, it's self-compassion, being curious, being gentle and soft with yourself, and just
Yeah.
allowing. Because when you force it, like you feel it closed and tight, right? But when
Yeah.
you can just allow, it softens. It's not so hard, it just softens. And the body will normally speak to you and tell the truth when you're able to get into that
Yeah.
regulated position, right? And that's why resourcing is so great.
Yeah.
Resourcing is
Yeah.
huge, and it's the part of self-care, right? Because when we're not regulated, sure, we can 100%. Um, like our body can play tricks with us, right? Because it can be past triggers that our trauma is coming up. Um, but if we can ease it and be gentle and compassionate with ourselves, then we can allow it,
Yeah.
right?
It's almost like when we're trying to fix or force, we're telling ourselves we're wrong once again. And how can we meet ourselves when we're shaming ourselves in a way?
Exactly.
And yeah, the way you just described it is perfect. Just softening into it, being gentle, being curious. But when we have that beautiful foundation of being able to do that with the resourcing, that's when this starts to happen. And it's almost like, us as therapists, once we know that resourcing is starting to really be a place that person knows they can lean into, we almost feel like we're just gently there, guiding and holding space, and they actually do the work, the client, because they start to build that trust, which is such a beautiful thing to witness.
Hmm. No, I agree. And then when we're compassionate with ourselves and we can be gentle with ourselves,
Yeah.
it allows us to do it to others.
Mm.
But until we put that face mask on ourselves to be able to breathe, we're not able to do it for other people, right?
No, absolutely not.
I
Yeah.
mean, we can try, but it's not going to come out well. It's better to take care of ourselves and then we can be compassionate
Yeah.
towards everyone. And what advice do you have for people who do not feel good enough? Um,
Yeah, I would say that there's probably something behind it. As when we get to know ourselves, we work out, okay, maybe why don't I feel good enough? When was I told I wasn't good enough? How does it feel? Using that somatic lens too. How does it feel when I think about not being good enough? Because that feeling will have something to tell them, and meeting that feeling. Because quite often when we start to have those sort of thoughts, I'm not good enough, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm broken, there is sensation behind it. There might be
mhm,
memories behind it, parts of themselves that maybe they've gone, that's just too hard to meet, and the avoidance of it or the wrongness of it, which amplifies it. So same sort of thing. It would be, okay, how can we meet that part of you and let them know that it's okay? It's okay, if you don't feel good enough. We just want to get to know that part of you. And I love that saying of, it's like inviting the enemy in for a cup of tea. They're big and scary, and we have all these stories about them and preconceived ideas, and then we're sitting having a cup of tea, and all of a sudden they start to change, and they don't have as much power over us or as much influence, or we don't feel as, I guess, influenced or scared of it. And that's the way that I would see something like that. Let's just invite it in and get to know it and see what it's got to tell us from that space of curiosity and compassion. This is a beautiful thing that I love about getting to know us. I say to people, you might feel a bit uncomfortable. And I know for myself, there's been times, where it has felt uncomfortable to meet these parts. But once I have, and I've started to peel back the layers, like you said, there's layers there. And I almost see like maybe that outer layer is the bodyguard going, there's other stuff under here, but I'm trying to protect those layers too. Once the bodyguard relaxes and the other layers start to step forward, that I'm not good enough will start to be part of what makes you such a beautiful, unique person and tells you so much about who you actually are. And I know for me, a lot of the times I've actually ended up feeling really proud of myself that I'm not good enough was there, and it helped me survive certain situations in my life previously that maybe I wouldn't have if that didn't step forward to protect me.
I love it. I don't think I've ever heard someone give such a good answer about not feeling good enough. I have felt not good enough in my life many times. There's a side of me that's extremely confident and a part of me that doesn't feel good enough. I think we all have parts of us that we can, we all have different parts of us, right? And if we can speak to the different parts, and that can happen in somatic processing sessions, beautiful work can be done. And your answer was like really well, Nicole.
Oh, good, thank you. And I think this is what comes as, doesn't it, from when we've stepped through it and we know, I wouldn't even call it the power, but I would call it almost like an unveiling. It's almost like we're living under a veil, and then you meet something like that, and the veil lifts, and you see things, especially yourself, so differently. It's, and I say to people, I might look the same on the outside, but the inside is completely different because I don't feel that way anymore. Of course, every now and then it might come up, but now I'm at a place where I go, okay, I see you. What's actually going on here? Instead of being controlled by it.
Really good answer. I know personally for me, um, I love that answer. Besides the somatic work, one thing that has personally helped me, and it will be unique for everyone out there, some will appreciate and some will, they won't get worth from it. But um, since I'm Christian, I believe we're all created by God.
Yeah,
And if we're created by God, then we all have human worth. Everyone, every single person on this planet has human worth. And if we're
yeah,
loved by someone like God, that's that powerful and that magnificent, and He loves every single one of us, how can we not have human worth? Every single person has human worth and human dignity and deserves to be cherished and treated with human respect and dignity,
yeah,
regardless.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's really telling that if you know that, and obviously this isn't your case, but for people that know that but then still feel like they can't quite feel it,
What do you mean?
maybe. So if you might say, everyone's valuable, everyone deserves love, everyone is loved
Yeah.
by God, especially, and then if you're really honest with yourself and look around, you would see there's love. But if we're in such a state of dysregulation and maybe feel like we're not worthy of love,
Yeah.
that is where that work comes in
Oh,
of
I
being,
agree.
okay, so
Yes.
yeah,
It's not an
yeah.
easy
So
one and done answer either. No, for
no, no,
sure.
it's not.
No, it's
It's
not just me. It's
complex.
like that's snoring up here, right? But like it's processing. Like it's many steps, right? It's not just one answer. There are many steps and many times you have to take many steps to get there,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And many approaches.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's worth the work, and it definitely helps.
Yeah, and it is really, once again, isn't it? Just finding what aligns to you. There is no, and taking away the right and the wrong. Just
Hmm.
going, what is right for me is right. Doesn't have to be right for anybody else. But if it's right for me, that's all that really matters.
Hmm.
And, holding that space or getting yourself held in that space that feels right for you.
Exactly. Because what works for you may not work for someone else, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and how do we start to set healthy boundaries?
Now, I think personally, and, the work that I've done, boundaries really is something that you won't just jump into and be able to do it without feeling certain ways. And a lot of the things that people feel when they first start, especially if they have never really held boundaries before, is maybe guilt, questioning themselves because it feels uncomfortable if it's something you've never done. And my recommendation is always starting small, starting with something that feels, yes, this feels safe for me to set. I might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I know that it's something that I can do and that I can hold. Because there's no point going to this huge boundary that is not going to be something that you can follow through on or something you actually feel comfortable with. And making sure the boundary is something that you are doing for you, not something that someone else has told you to do, because that will never work. Boundaries to me are very personal. Um, and obviously, in the work I do with people who have a loved one in addiction, I would never say to someone, you need to set this boundary. It would be more like, let's get curious about what feels like it's maybe crossing a line for you. What are the things that are maybe going on for you that you're starting to feel a bit resentful about, feeling a bit overwhelmed from, that you feel like, I don't really want this in my life anymore? And starting from there. So boundaries for me too are not a one size fits all. They're very unique and individual, and there's no right or wrong. But yeah, starting small, especially if they are something that is going to be hard for you to do. Then there's no shame in that. I think I really want to mention that too. There's no shame in not being able to do it. I had never heard of a boundary before, and also the way that you hold a boundary, you don't have to communicate it. You can do it for yourself. I feel like there's a lot of things around boundaries that people think they have to do, and you don't. It's really for you, to show yourself that you value you and there's things that you will not tolerate, but being kind and gentle with yourself in the process.
I agree. I'm teaching my daughter the word boundary, right? It's respecting yourself, right?
Mm.
And it's so important for women and men um, to be able to set those boundaries and be able to respect themselves, right? And say no, right? Um,
Yeah.
and feel that no, embody that no. Even like people at home, like you can practice today putting out your hand and just saying no. That's a boundary. No, right?
Yeah.
You're crossing a line. That is a boundary, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost too like we don't have to explain it to anybody else. As long as you feel confident in yourself that this is a no for you,
Hmm.
that's all that needs to be said. Because I feel like once we get to that explaining space, we're almost starting to go, hang on a minute, maybe this is wrong. And that's because someone else is telling us that. But boundaries, like you said, they're personal, they're for you. So, like having a healthy boundary, it will take practice. Let's just be really honest with that. Just saying no, don't feel like you're going to just be able to do that. Or if you do it and then you question yourself a little bit, that's where this meeting that going, okay, what is it about this that's made me feel uncomfortable? What is it about it that's made me go, should I have said no? Maybe I should be saying yes. And that's when the body will tell you the truth of it, which, if you've really worked on your boundary and thought about what does feel right and wrong for you or what you do and don't want to be tolerating, you will know, okay, that uncomfortability is maybe because I've never done this or this is new. No, it's not because it's wrong. It's a big difference. I think that's, that part of getting to know and being able to lean into yourself and trust yourself.
And it takes time. And I know personally in my life, I have experienced people pleasing, fawning, um, saying yes when I don't really want to say yes,
Yeah.
just to get along, just to please, right? Um, Perfect example is girls I grew up with playing ringette. Great bunch of girls. We played for many years together, and my dad would coach us. And for people who do know what ringette is, it's similar to hockey, very similar. It's on ice. Um, but for a few years, people were just butt in front of me, right? They would
Mm.
just go in front, and I wouldn't say a word because I just wanted to get along with everyone. And my dad would
Yeah.
be like, Erin, what are you doing? Come on, speak up. And I'd be like, I didn't want to cause conflict, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to get along. So I would just kind of let it happen. And that's an example, right? Is I
Mm.
just wouldn't speak up. Um, and it was people pleasing. It was funny, right? But I got to a point that multiple times in my life that had happened. Um, and it got to a point that I started to learn a no, right? And when you start to have a no, people start to respect you more, right?
Yeah.
It's not, oh, people are going to like me more. The opposite actually happens. People start to respect you more. The people that actually value you or you want in your life, when you start to say no, and they start to say, oh, okay,
Yeah.
those, but if people just get angry or, um, that's not what you want, right? You want,
Yeah.
okay, because people, if you never speak up either, how are people supposed to know? We're not mind readers, none of us. So if we can
No.
communicate with respect and compassion to the other person and just say no, or tell them what your needs are, right? In
Mm.
that sense, just saying no, say these are my needs. Um, it helps with communication, but it also helps with our boundaries and it helps the other person respect you more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can open up a dialogue too sometimes, can't it? Where someone might actually even say, I'm really sorry, I never knew you felt like that.
Exactly.
That's the other part
Because
of it. We only imagine the heavy part happening, people getting angry and walking away from us or, not liking us anymore. We never see this other side of it that can come from, stepping forward and saying, hey, that's not okay, and showing ourselves that we matter too.
exactly, because when we don't communicate, there can be major misunderstandings and people can think something and it's not true, right?
Mm.
So boundaries are critical and respecting the individuals and yourself.
Yeah.
It helps you feel more peace in the body.
Yeah, I know for me, I was a huge people pleaser too. And I started to notice when I've, first started to do this deeper work that I had a lot of resentment that I had been holding. And I'd always projected it outwards. People don't see me, they don't ask what I need, they don't value, me. And it was those sort of things. But then as I started to get to know me, it was like, hang on a minute, same sort of thing. I've never told them or I've never spoken up. They always just thought, oh, she's so easy to get on with. She never asked for anything or she never, will ask for something different. And I was resentful actually at myself for having never stood up for me. So that was a bit to process, going, okay, I had to take responsibility for my role in this too. But same thing, compassion, kindness, understanding why I had played that role and allowed that to play out for so long. That for me was a huge shift in me starting to be able to, hold boundaries and set boundaries because I started to notice in my body feeling uncomfortable at times saying no was nowhere near as uncomfortable as feeling that resentment towards myself for not valuing me.
Makes sense. Because, and then we can start to have a sense of being, feel like we're being used,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's a horrible feeling to have. No one
yeah,
should have to feel like that because we, like I said, we all have human worth. Um, but I think it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. I know, like, I think I was a people pleaser and funner, and um, like I could say no to some things, but some things it was difficult.
yeah,
And I think till I was like early 20s, I started to find my voice and started to embody the no, right? And when you start to
yeah,
embody the no, it can make a big difference in your life. It can feel very good, right?
yeah,
And this doesn't
yeah.
mean like you have to like, like curse a person out. It's just a very
No,
respectful no. I don't want to, right? Like, or hey, you're butting in front of me, right? Or hey, you're asking too much, right?
yeah, yeah,
Or I'm tired, right? Like, um, yeah, I mean, and I know it can come across as many different ways. It doesn't have to be just no, right? It could be not today. There's many, many ways.
yeah, yeah. And I think understanding that when we do say yes and we mean no, there can be fallout from it. I remember Brene Brown telling a story about, this mum goes to school and gets asked to bake cookies for the baking stall and says yes, even though she doesn't have time. She's flat out, she's got so much going on, and she goes home and she's whipping up these biscuits and she's yelling at the kids and abusing her husband and slamming cookies in and out of the oven. Like, it's just so wound up and angry that she has to make these cookies, but she doesn't have to make the cookies. She could have said no.
Hmm.
And that in itself to me is a powerful story. It's like, well, what would have happened if she'd said no?
I know.
Or if she'd
I
gone,
think I've
yes, I
heard that
can, but I'm
story
going to
too.
buy them from the shop, like
Something
give
similar.
ourselves a break and go, my peace and my well-being and my relationships with myself and my loved ones is much more important than trying to look like or be like something that is actually going to cause me suffering, because really that's suffering, going home and behaving like that. And, probably went on all night, like, and everyone was like, don't go near mum. She's in a bad mood. And, then the kids are like, oh, did I do something wrong? Like, you see the ripple effect from that.
Yeah.
Whereas just simply saying, look, no, I just can't at the moment. It's a much
It's the
easier.
person will just respect you for it if it's the right
Yeah,
person, right? It may take time for them to understand, but the people that care will respect you for it. And the people that don't, then it's not worth having them in your life, really.
no,
You should say
that's
no.
it, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. I always think of that story, when I'm thinking of about something, and I go, hang on a minute, if I say yes, how is this going to play out? Is that something that I'm willing to have play out? Or is it easier? Or is it more respectful to myself to say no? Especially those decisions that don't just feel like a yes, no, where you feel like you need to sit with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. And what does feeling safe in your own skin mean to you? And how do you cultivate that feeling on a daily basis?
Wow. It was something that I never actually even realized I didn't feel safe. But when I started to feel it, it's almost like this sense of feeling again, not feeling numb, because I feel like I felt so numb for so long, and I was thinking about feeling rather than feeling. So being able to feel for me means that I don't need to run away from things, that even when big things happen, and, I've got 3 young adult children, recently a grandmother, partner who's been through addiction, just life, there's always things that come up that, you know, you go, okay, this is a bit challenging. And being able to hold space for myself now is so freeing. And, you know, there's times where I go, this is really big, but I know what to do. You know, it might even mean at 10 o'clock at night, I'm walking around my backyard, you know, in bare feet or whatever, trying to give myself that room for the emotions just to move a bit because they feel too big. But that is so much more freeing to me than lying in bed, Googling, nearly having a panic attack. And, you know, adding all these stories onto what's actually going on that aren't true, but feel safer than being with the emotions.
Hmm.
That to me is freedom because I'm not trying to run away from myself. And then that also ripples on to being able to hold space for my loved ones, which to me is probably the big silver lining of this whole healing and getting to be able to do this. That they come to me with something, I don't add to it, I hold space for them. And, you know, my kids are now 28, 25, and almost 22. And for them to, you know, know they can come to me and there's no judgment. There's no me trying to fix it. There's no me getting angry or getting really upset, but just being able to meet them in it. That to me is what freedom is. You know, it's when I was living in fear, I just was so detached and really disconnected. And that version of me, you know, I'm so damn proud of her because she got through some really big things the best way she knew how. But we don't need to live there anymore. It's safe. And that's what I love about, you know, being able to be with me now. Don't always get it right. I'm still, you know, I am human. Doesn't mean I always get it right. But even if I don't get it right, I know how to come back and repair and hold that space for myself first and then with my loved ones. So we don't have to carry that on top of everything else.
I agree. And holding space for our loved ones, right? Just like you hold
Yeah,
space for your children, instead of just telling them what to do or just holding space, allowing, listening.
yeah,
And that's why the EP community is so good too, right?
yeah,
Because many of us have had challenging and times and our own personal struggles. And
yeah,
it's a place in the community that's judge free, that we can
yeah,
just hold space for one another. Um, and what advice do you have for all of our viewers today to be able to become more embodied, to listen to themselves, their core authentic self, to hear what's happening in clarity, to go into that space and just become in tune?
yeah. One thing that I do think that anybody can do, and you could do it right now if you're watching this, is a practice that I do most mornings, depending on the weather, is I literally make myself a nice hot drink and I just go and sit in. I've got a stoop that sits in the sun and I sit there and I hold my cup and I just take a few minutes just to really feel. And that, when you're first starting, could even be, what does this cup feel like in my hand? Feeling the heat from the cup radiate into your skin, maybe down, you know, up the arm a little bit. When you have a sip of your drink, how does it feel when you swallow it? Feeling the sun on your skin. Just giving yourself a moment to be present with you as the whole body. And that to me is a way just to gently start, that we can all do, that we all can just find a way to do that. If you know you're not in a position to get professional support, I think that, and that's something that I continue to do because I find it just a really beautiful way to start my day and to hold space for myself. And it's not about going, oh, I feel a bit funny here, or it's not about judging it. It's literally just being there and noticing what I feel. You know, and then I might hear something, and you know, we've got beautiful magpies warbling here. I might hear that and go, oh wow, that just makes my heart feel lighter when I hear that noise. It's such a beautiful noise, part of nature. But just really being present with yourself, I think that there's something really powerful in that, because in the way that a lot of us live now is so busy,
Mm.
to be able to give yourself even just a few minutes. And if mornings don't work, do it at a different time, but just try to find a few minutes, just to be with yourself, but to do it on that deeper level. I just find the hot drink is a really good point to start because you literally have to feel it. You can't not feel it, but taking it that little step further, and noticing, just really noticing it. And then obviously, getting support off a professional somatic therapist, EP, what we do. Um, but I think just being really mindful of what you really want for yourself, but knowing that there is a lot of knowledge and a lot of power that comes from connecting with our body. And it really is such a beautiful space, because I know people might feel a bit intimidated by it, but there's nothing that your body will tell you that will ever be too big, especially when we start with resourcing and being able to hold that space.
I agree. And so what Nicole is explaining is going into the body, noticing, and it's also glimmers from the polyvagal theory, right? Finding small moments
Mm.
that you can just embody and just take that breath, because we all need that breath in life. And that breath is just a breath of peace.
Yeah.
You said a warm cup of tea. It's interesting. Mine is a warm bath. 10 minutes. If I find, okay, I'm stressed, that's like one of my go-tos. I just need 10 minutes of silence, go sit in a hot bath, right?
Yeah.
Um, it just kind of releases, just kind of lets your nervous system just relax. And we all need that. And everyone ideally should be trying to take that every day, right?
Yeah.
And it's becoming spring here in Canada, walking in nature and not just going for a walk and staying in your head, but as you're walking, notice how it feels to take each step. Try and notice the wind or the sun against your skin. If there's a breeze, notice if you hear anything, right?
Yeah.
And just become aware of all your sensations and just take it all in. If you're a runner, I like to run, you can do the same thing, right? Just embody it. Same as swimming. If you like to go swimming, you can do it with each stroke. Just with each stroke,
Mm.
notice how it feels on the body. Notice the sensations that you're feeling, right? You can do this with anything, with embodying it, doing the dishes. Just one dish at a time and just noticing how it feels, embodying it.
Mm.
And even that can give you a sense of peace. It's the little basic things in life. And it's the little basic things in life that are important and that make us human,
Yeah.
right? And it brings us down to our human level and grounds us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for watching and tuning in. Thank you, Nicole, so much for coming. She's been on 3 times. I love her, have her come on. She gives such great advice. She's a very wise lady. Um, and I loved that was one of the best pieces of advice about not feeling good enough, how to process through it. I think I haven't heard a better answer from anyone. So good job.
Thank you. Thank you. There's something that really does come from sitting with our wisdom that the body has to offer, isn't it? That's really where it comes from. And like sitting here and talking and not just thinking about the answer, but feeling the answer. So thank you for having me again.
Thank you. And our information will be below. If you're interested in a session, just reach out. And we'll be having our next interview next week, and we will be having our interviews start up again. So please tune in. We love to have you come and join us.